Today is the second part of our study of group karma. There's a question mark there. In other words, does it exist? Is it possible? What does it mean? There's a long essay here, which is in part 1, chapter 1 of Sutta Discovery, volume 39.1. And this volume is also available online. This is the one. Okay? So we probably take 3 lessons, I think. So today is our second lesson. Now, today we're on page 16. It says 16, 17. Okay, talking about the nature of group karma. Now, before I start, let us get a bit of basics. In case you're wondering, is there really such thing as group karma? So this is kind of like a underlying foundation idea. First of all, we should know that not everything is due to karma. Some things are not because of karma. For example, the fact that you come here may or may not be because of karma. For example, we might have known each other in the past, so we have a connection now. Okay, that's karma. But you saw an advertisement or a friend told you about this talk or this place, and you decide to come. So this one is, you might say, the result of advertisement. Yeah? So the computer, it is something else, electronic. So you have, and sometimes we fall sick. Is it karma? Well, I mean, if you take the wrong food, you fall sick. It's not karma. It's because of something else. So on the board here we have what I call 5 niyamas, or orders. These are not really laws like in the scientific laws. They're more like processes, natural processes. So you have, they're given in Pali here: Uttu niyama, bija niyama, kamma niyama, citta niyama, dhamma niyama. These are what happens naturally. So the first is Uttu, means heat. In a sense, like the weather, warmth, decay, and so on. So here, modern terms, we could call this the theory of physics. All those things that we see in science. The law of seeds, bija niyama. A mango seed is planted, you get a mango tree. It's not karma. Right? So this is genetics, if you like, heredity, and so on. For example, we are born human. In a sense, yes, we have do this in the past, so we are born human. But the fact that our parents are human and you get a human baby, that's not karma. That will be under the law of seeds. Right? Human parents equal to human children. Then you have karma niyama. So this is only one of them, karma. Karma is a mental, conscious action that brings us some kind of result, and we feel it in our own way. So karma is a very complicated teaching in Buddhism. So you can't really compare this with, for example, the Hindu idea of karma and so on. Very different. Yeah? So in the Buddhist karma, we are responsible for our action, yes. We can also change our karma, and karma is more like a habit and so on. Then you have citta niyama, the laws of the mind, how our mind functions, how we remember things, how we can calm the mind peacefully. And that's not karma. You can meditate and calm the mind, for example. It's the way the mind works. And if you focus the mind on one object, the mind becomes more and more peaceful. Okay? And this last part is like a miscellaneous. So whatever is called dhamma niyama or the other things that are classified in the first 4 you put here. This is a bit more traditional. For example, all those miraculous things we talk about when the Buddha was born, traditionally are placed under this category. Okay? So this gives us an idea that not everything that happens is due to karma. Although the most important events in our life would be related to karma. And that would be good to understand how they happen, why they happen if possible, and then what most importantly is what to do with those kind of karma. There's always something we can do, in other words. Otherwise, there's no point coming here, no point studying Buddhism. Everything is stated, So karma, in other words, relates to an individual. Okay, We have a mind, and we express our karma through our thoughts, our speech, and our body. 3 kinds of karma. The 3 doors of karma: body, speech, and mind, or mind, speech, and body. These are called the 3 doors of karma. We look at the 5 precepts. The first 3 precepts, against killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, have to do with the body. Then the 4th precept is speech, deal with speech. And the last one, not to get the mind drugged or intoxicated, deals with the mind. That's all the 3 doors are there. So the question now, what about group karma? I mean, if we together, we sit here together, we're studying a drama, aren't we creating good karma? We all are creating good karma here. So in a sense, you might say, right now as we sit here, we're creating good karma. But each of us generate our own karma. It's not like our minds are connected together. Although in some realms, as we studied last week, in some of the higher realms, there are these beings, they share the same body, only their minds are different. Some of them, their minds are the same, but body are different, like human beings, and so on. So we all have our own mind, our own body. So each of us generate our karma according to our personality and other conditions. But at this point, you can say our karma converge, or our karma coincide, if you like, at this point. Yeah? So we share certain understanding of the sutta. Each of us are going to our level. So we will go deeper into this as we go along today. So to help us understand better the nature of good karma, scholars have introduced 2 terms. Aggregate and conglomerate. This is section 5.2. Aggregate means simply we come together. Let's say we all go shopping, We all go shopping, and there are lots of people in the shopping mall. Everyone has the aim of buying things, but you don't say that's good karma. They are there, and when they spend money, the shopping mall becomes rich. It's something to do with karma. Then, okay? It's not. I mean, we call it group karma. Yeah, you can for convenience, but we can call it an aggregate. These people get together, they go as an aggregate, meaning they each go by themselves with no plan. They're not doing it together. Although some families may go together, okay, but still they're regarded as aggregates. Now, the word conglomerate is different. Conglomerate is where, let's say we are a company, okay? We are registered as a company, we work together, and then we mess up the ocean with oil spill and so on, So then the company is responsible. The question now is, who is responsible? That's another big discussion. Of course, the person most responsible would be the head of that company. But what if the head did not make the decision? Maybe someone else gave the idea, and this person makes sure the idea came through. So that person will be responsible for the oil pollution and so on. So you can see how tricky karma can be. So we've got to examine a lot of things. This kind of idea helps us, reminds us to be responsible for our ideas or for how we work. We've got to think carefully. 3 important principles whenever we want to do something, even looking for a job, or basically our actions. Whether this thing we do will harm ourselves or not. If it harms ourselves, then we should not do it. Will it harm other people? And thirdly, will it harm the environment? We have to check, make sure these 3 things are wholesome and safe. Then only we act on it. So we might join a group. Let's say this group wants to rob a bank. So if you join a wrong company, you're caught. You have to do this. Or like this bomber, It's a group. They decide to bomb, this plane. Let's say this plane to fly into the Twin Tower. Does everybody share the same karma? It's very tricky. You have like an hierarchy of karma here. This is only by way of talking. There's no way we can know what kind of hierarchy. We're just saying kind of moral accountability, if you like. The person most responsible will be the leader, planning, and giving them the support and the funds and so on. And what about the driver of the car that took all these terrorists? Maybe this driver was forced to do it, so his karma would not be so big, so to speak. But then again, if he was a good person, he may be deeply troubled by all this, learning so many people die. So karma here, in other words, is the action you do and then how it acts on you. So if you habitually do something bad, then it's easier for you to go on doing something bad. So it takes some effort to stop. That is why we need the Dharma. Because the Dharma, if you calm your mind and you focus yourself studying and you read the suttas and feel very happy, then the chances of you taking a turn will be stronger. In other words, you are more empowered to change your life. And this is very important. That is why we study the suttas. That is why we meditate. Meditation is the most powerful way of turning your life in the right direction. Why is that so? You notice in meditation, we say, let go of ideas, let go of the thoughts. Bring in the positive ideas, positive thoughts, for example, in loving kindness practice. Then in the breath meditation, we clear our minds of our thoughts, very peaceful. So once your mind is clear, you're very happy. And when you come out of your meditation, you're so peaceful, you find you can do any good thing you want. So your life begins to change like that through meditation. Yeah? And as you know, in meditation, it is an individual action. You yourself practice, you yourself calm your mind. Of course, we can do in a group, yes, but each person calms his mind. It's very much like eating food, you know. You take the food, you feel your own belly, you feel food. Right? People may eat together, but each of them take their own food. Something like that, right? But the point is, we all live together as a society, as a community. So we do influence each other. Although we act individually, we can be influenced by others. For example, today there's so many temples. Every Sunday, you get thousands of people in Singapore going to different centers. And each center will be teaching different things. And some only do rituals, and some teach their own thing. Right? So you find each person learns something different. Whether useful or not is another matter. So this is where we have to be very careful in our selection of the Dharma. In other words, what kind of practice is good for us? Which Buddhism, there's so many Buddhisms, should we follow, right? So if we're influenced by others, we will make the wrong choice. So this is where we think very carefully for ourselves. Do I feel peaceful with this practice? Is this practice changing our mind? Are we at peace with ourselves? And when we ask such questions, then we begin to slowly direct ourselves to the right kind of Dharma practice, in other words. So now, we're talking about the group, we're talking about individuals. What about countries? Section 612, that is about Tibet. Okay. So, you see, Tibet is a country, in some ways, suffered, right? We say, China overran Tibet, occupied Tibet, and so on. Okay, let's take this example. Is it group karma? Yes and no, okay? The word group karma is a very convenient term to use like a skillful means to talk about what happened to Tibet, in religious terms, if you like. But if you really want to talk meaningfully what happened in Tibet, I think we need to talk about it sociologically. In other words, more like as a society, what happened, and then the politics, history, a lot of this is put together. That's what happened in Tibet. Okay? So, when China attacks Tibet, what happened? So, who is affected in Tibet? Not really the poor people. It's those very powerful monks are the ones affected. They are the ones who lost the power. Tibet is a very interesting history, see, because around the 12th century, you have one of these monks called Gyawa Kamapa. He became the leader. So in other words, somehow these powers were taken away from the lay people, and the monks became powerful. And then slowly they introduced this idea of rebirth through incarnation. It's a very interesting way of holding power, if you like. Yeah? Of course, these are all very new things. The Buddha never taught this thing. This was introduced in Tibet. And so the monks became powerful, very much like the Roman Catholic Church in the early centuries, if you like. So, this so-called Tulku system is the one that is kind of pushed out of Tibet, and the people were liberated, so to speak. So the question now, whose karma is this? Is it because the Tibetans have politicized Buddhism? Is it because they use Buddhism for politics? It's hard to explain all these things. So the point here is that all these are sociological, historical, political. But each person, how each person experiences all this, what happened here, is something that we say is the person's karma. For example, the Dalai Lama managed to escape. He was saved, but other monks were not so lucky. They kind of suffered, right? So karma is on an individual basis. Of course, maybe they are the same group, yes, they will suffer together. But each person responds in a different way. So whether, we can't say whether this good karma is just or not. It depends on the mind of the person. Okay? But there are contributing factors. For example, if you come from a background where the family is very kind and loving, and you also are likely to be a kind and loving person. So we do have that kind of supporting background. Okay? In other words, the group we are with does help us or hinder us in some way. Okay? To be better or to be worse. So in a sense, if you are, in the case, to bring this Tibetan story again, many of these Tibetans who left Tibet, for example, now they come out into the open free world, so to speak, and they come to Singapore and they get rich patrons and they become richer, and maybe they're even better for them now, if you're talking in terms of wealth, Whereas in Tibet, they are kind of rivaling each other, introducing all kinds of new teachings and rituals, to hold their devotees together. So this is where each of these groups, each of these person face new karma, depending on their behavior. Okay. Here, I'm not making any moral judgment here, I'm just saying what is likely to happen individually. So it's not so much of a group thing, although historically you can put it that way, but we got to see in terms of karma individually when it comes to them. So we have both aspects working together. Right? But when you talk of karma, we also talk of tendencies, habits. For example, all of us here, we have this a kind of tendency for the Dharma. We have an attitude where we like to listen to the Dharma or read some Buddhist books or meditate. Why? Maybe in the last life we have been practicing also. Maybe in this life we found something peaceful, something useful in the Dharma. So that's our karma. It's a habit, it's a tendency. So in other words, it means, to give a very simple example, if you learn to meditate, if you meditate once, you're likely to do it again. Or on the other side, you do something bad, let's say you get angry, you're likely to get angry again. So we want to build up the good karma rather than the negative karma, in other words. And to do this, we must be conscious. We must be focused. We must direct our attention to the practice. Otherwise, it will not work. It's very interesting if, let's say, you on Sunday you go to any center or temple, a group event, let's say doing puja or even during a talk, and you watch different people, how they respond. Some will be, of course, some sit in front, some sit right at the back, and you know very well, those who sit at the back will be talking and chatting or listening, really. And then again, in the talk, you find a different reaction. So these are all different tendencies of the people. Some of them, they don't even join in the puja or the talk. Right? So these are all different actions, different habits of the people. And there are those who don't understand what's going on, no matter how simple the speaker may try to speak. So in many ways, this has to do with our karma also. But once we realize, you say, oh, how come I can understand this teaching? And you make an effort, you say, I want to know, I want to understand. Then you have created this new trend of group of karma. So and by doing this, wisdom arises in you. So we can change, in other words, through our own awareness of the fact that, number one, we are ignorant, or we are not happy, or something is missing in our lives. What is this? It's the First Noble Truth. We have experienced the First Noble Truth. Then we reflect on it and we say, what caused all this? What are the conditions that made this arise? Right? You may or may not get the exact answer. You said maybe, I've not been reading enough, or maybe I didn't spend enough time coming for talk, study, meditation. So that's the second noble truth. And the third one is you say, okay, how do I solve this? Maybe I should arrange my time more effectively so that I can spend more time for myself and not just work or be with other people or just waste my time. So that's the third noble truth, where you visualize a solution and then you put it into action. You come here for a study like this, or you go for talks, or you meditate by yourself, so you begin your practice. So we are putting the Four Noble Truths into practice. Right? Now there are other examples of group karma. Let's look at another one. This is a very well-known one. 632, section 632, the professional beggars. Now these few months, couple of years, you don't hear from them. But they could be doing it quietly. The monk beggars, I mean, they dress like monks, but they are not really monks because they come in the morning with their bowls, they go to the market, especially in the heartlands, and they only collect money. Sometimes they will give away some kind of amulets, they collect money. And why is this wrong? Because this gives a wrong image of Buddhism. People may think that Buddhism or these monks are, what are they doing? They're just collecting money. And number two, the monks don't do this. You see, the monks, when they go out, they collect only food. Right? So the question now, whose karma is it? Oh, here is very clear. It's definitely the karma of each of those so-called monk beggars who go around collecting money that way. But on a broader level, other people are also involved. The Buddhist leaders in this country, for example, if they didn't take action to correct this, basically they're allowing it to happen. And then it also comes down to each of us who are practicing Buddhism. So if we look at it and we say, oh, I don't know what to do, or we are afraid, then in a sense we are also part of the problem. So you can understand here you have two aspects. Now one is the individual responsibility, and you have group responsibility. And this is something Buddhists in Asia is quite weak, because we tend to look at the monks as a uniform force. Sometimes we fear the uniform. We respect, but there's little interaction otherwise, like discussing how to solve this problem and acting together as a group. So this is where group karma is meaningful. In a sense, if more Buddhists say this is wrong, and they try to get the authorities to correct this, then you find this problem will be solved. So this idea of group karma is very helpful for us to work as a society, to be more effective socially. Yeah? Otherwise, we will be what's called a priestly religion. We look at the monks as priests, and we only go there for rituals, and that won't be very helpful. There are various other reasons which you can read in this sutta in this essay here for your own reflection. So here, in other words, if we do not act, then we do contribute in some way to things happening in society. That is because as individuals we form the group, and even one person's action, one person says we need to change, good change, wholesome change can come. It may take time, but it will come. In other words, we should share our ideas on how we think Buddhists should live, how Buddhists can be happy, effective as a social group. Then we talk about how Buddhists, when you come together, you can work together by connecting with one another. This is called affinity, fellowship. Now, if you have fellowship, then it's easier to work together as Buddhists. Next, then you have this word propinquity. Propinquity means kind of availability of people in a group. Of course, this is more for the younger people. So if there is this kind of interconnection, and you find that the Buddhists will make friends with each other, and if they're young, and then they deepen your friendship, they get married together, and so on. So they form partnerships. So this is propinquity. So this is another aspect of a group karma, if you like. If you mix more with good, happy, wholesome Buddhist groups, then you also tend to benefit from it, and the group also grows healthily, wholesomely. Now, what about social implications of karma? Here you have what are called external influence and internal effects, or internal considerations, if you like. This is where we can ask ourselves, how do we learn things, for example? We can learn in two ways. One is from the group, from other people. The other is through our own effort. In the Buddhist teachings, we have this first method is called parato gosa, another person's voice. Like here, I'm talking, you're listening, right? So listening to the voice of another. We learn from others. So the Buddhist group should be the ground for learning. And yet, on the other hand, more importantly, is how we ourselves think. We ourselves practice mindfulness, meditation. This is called yoniso manasikara, or wise attention. This is at the bottom of page 22. So these two things are the sources of wisdom in us. By learning to listen to others. Number two, by our own practice of mindfulness or meditation. Two ways. So here again you see individual effort through wise attention, and then associating, listening to others. So two aspects. One individual, the other is group. In fact, these two aspects, you might say, working together is called spiritual friendship. Spiritual friendship. Spiritual friendship has to do with the training of heart and mind, or training of body, heart, and mind. Body refers to moral virtue, keeping the precepts, and then the samadhi is to do with the heart, and then the wisdom, the mind. So it's something like that. So a simple way of looking at the three trainings. So ultimately, we have to think for ourselves. We have to calm our own mind. So these are individual efforts. The group cannot do this. But if more people do this, then you have a healthier group. A group that is not only thinking group, but a group that is at peace with itself, because the group can be violent also. So now we go on to 721, from the group to individual. So if we do not have this meditating aspect, this wise attention aspect, then this group is going to be unthinking. It's more likely somehow to do unwholesome or bad deeds, in other words. Yet at the same time, we must remember when something wrong happens, the question now is who's responsible? Now let's look at the individual basis. If something goes wrong, meaning you look at something and you're not happy with it. Maybe you think you have failed, that's a very simple example. Whose responsibility is it? Now here you have a very interesting way of looking at it. We can say in this case, no one is responsible. No one is responsible for our failure. No one is responsible for our suffering. Of course, we can blame some people we don't like, especially when a particular person makes every effort to make us unhappy. It could be someone close to us, it could be someone not close to us. But even then, we would say that this particular person is causing us the main cause of our suffering is simply one of the conditions. Because if we are happy, if we are spiritual, whatever this person does, we may suffer in some way, socially, but mentally, spiritually, we are still okay. We are, not troubled by it. So in other words, a spiritually strong person, no matter what happens to him, is able to understand the conditions that brought the suffering, and he understands nature of causes and effect. He doesn't blame anyone, but he looks to understand of this nature and conditions and to correct those conditions so that the suffering goes away. And if he's able to do that, then he becomes truly a spiritual person. Now let's come back to the point of group karma. What about karma of religions? So this is where we can say religion is group action generally, right? In most religions you find people do things together, even in Buddhism. On Sundays people get together, And yet Buddhism is also an individual action, something we do alone by ourselves, like when we meditate. So in Buddhism you have two aspects, the individual aspect as well as the group aspect. The problem now is sometimes people can look to religion in a wrong way. What they're doing is they look at religion as endorsing what they believe. And this is the most common thing really. Why do we like a religion? Because we feel this religion agrees with our ideas. We do not want to change our ideas. This is especially true. We are born into a culture which is really religious and we have no other choice. But you have to choose that religion. So, and the mind is such that you can induce yourself, you can direct yourself to believe in whatever you want to believe in. It's so easy, especially when you have a group around you reinforcing those kind of ideas. It takes a lot of effort, supreme effort if you like, for someone to say, I think I have enough of this group. I don't think the group is right, and they come out of the group. And such a person was the Buddha. He saw the people in his day suffering, exploited by the priests, the Brahmins, and he decided to step out of that kind of system, renounce the world, so to speak, and find a way out so that the people of his time do not suffer. So when we talk about the Buddha and India, we have another very interesting group karma aspect. We know that Buddhism disappeared from India. So the question now is, in terms of group karma, what really happened? Here again, you have a very tricky situation, there are many possible explanations. So I will attempt to explain from the group karma point of view. For example, some people say that, in the 12th century, the Turkish army, marauders, come all the way from, the Europe area, west, and then came down into India. Of course, they went to the Silk Road, Central Asia also, and then they basically destroyed the culture and then took over and ruled those areas. So apparently they destroyed all the monasteries in India, killed the monks, and other monks ran away, went south to Sri Lanka or South India, or went north to the Himalayas or Kashmir. Kashmir was untouched because Kashmir was a poor country at that time. And then some went to China and so on. But Buddhism effectively disappeared almost overnight, if you like, within a decade from India. But is it really the Turkish armies that destroyed Buddhism? We can say that happened in the 12th century, yes, as the highlight of this event. But what else did happen? What kind of Buddhism was it during that time, the 12th century in India? By that time, most of the monks, if not all of them, they were living in big monasteries, huge monasteries, very rich, very beautiful. And they were focused not so much on meditation, but on academic studies. This was a time with big universities like Nalanda University. The Buddhist monks were very powerful, very influential at that time, and very rich. Where there is wealth, there are takers. These big armies, they're not paid, these Turkish armies. So what they do is, when they attack a certain area, then they share the spoils. So the Buddhist monasteries were an excellent place for them to get all this wealth. So whose fault is it then? Now if the monks or practitioners live in the forest, they won't be affected, you see. Right? Now the Hindus are not affected. And there's a very interesting reason for this. Because the Hindus do not have what's called the core of their culture, focus. Whereas in the Buddhists of the 12th century, their focus was these big urbanized monasteries. Whereas the Hindus were kind of spread out everywhere. Small temple here, at home they have a shrine, they practice on their own. And the Jains too. The Jains were a very peaceful, pacifist religion. They too were safe. Why? And the reason is very interesting here. One of the reasons here is they have lay people who are teachers. Not only the priests, not only the monks, but lay people. So these lay people, they look just like you and I. So those armies that came could not recognize them, could not distinguish them from other people. And they would teach in the houses and so on, like laid up teachers if you like. So now this again is very interesting because the Buddha himself in the Samyutta, for example, says no one outside the religion can destroy the sasana, the teaching. Only empty people within the religion can destroy it. In other words, if you don't practice and you build up wealth through religion, which is what religion is mostly about today, the control of wealth and power, then you will face the consequences of this kind of karma. So this is one way of looking at it. How does good karma act on the religion and brought an end to Buddhism during that period. But then again, you find after a while, like now, these recent years, the last 50 years or 100 years, in a sense, Buddhism is coming back to India also, if you like. But what kind of Buddhism it is, of course, we've got to examine it. It's a modern kind of Buddhism. Then again, another interesting example of good karma is the Bamiyan Buddha images. Those are huge statues, which were destroyed by the Taliban people that they were bombing this image. So, of course, people are very pious to say, oh, look at they're knocking down these Buddha images, it's bad karma. It may or may not be bad karma. Of course, you need a lot of anger to do those things, to destroy such ancient structures. They've been trying to do that for centuries, by the way, but they didn't succeed. Until modern times, we get all those more powerful bombs and guns. And this is, I remember when I first talked in Singapore over 10 years ago, it was around the time this image was destroyed. And it was something like, it was Friendship Day, I think. I had to give a talk to some 800 students. And they were asking about this event and saying, religion talks about peace. How come they're destroying all these images, you know? And it was an interreligious forum, so you have a Buddhist, I represent the Buddhist, and you have a Hindu and you have a Muslim. There was supposed to be a Christian representative, but he lost his way, he couldn't find his way to the school. Anyway, so the Hindu was the first speaker. He said, oh yeah, you know, we should not do this, it's wrong. And the Muslim, of course, was the most apologetic, said, yeah, you know, we are a religion of peace and we don't destroy images. Then my turn came to talk. And I said, well, no, we Buddhists, we're not angry. We're not angry with the destruction of these images. After all, our teaching is that everything is impermanent. You know? So here, this will destroy the image. It's okay. It's okay to us. Because we are more concerned, why did they destroy it? Right? Why should we be concerned with rocks and stone? We are more concerned with the living people. Why did they destroy this image? And this is very interesting because the explanation is given on page 26. In March 2001, the Taliban representative, you know, visited the US. So he explained why this giant image was destroyed. He says that they're very unhappy because UNESCO and some of the Western government, they did not help the Taliban, who were suffering from the damages of war, and they had a drought, a very difficult time. They don't have enough food. So they're asking for help. But nobody helped them. But these people were coming to this area with money. They want to restore this image. So you can imagine, you know, they're hungry and they're poor, they have so much trouble, there's a war-torn area. They want help. But here someone wants to restore some rock images, which is not their religion. So they're very unhappy about this. So in other words, if we had helped them feed their sick and their poor, which Buddhists normally would do, they probably wouldn't have bothered with the images. So here again, you know, we find that we've forgotten what to do, the right thing to do. So these people are just destroying the image as a sign of protest. So it's very sad for both sides, in other words. So we understand in this way how the different groups function, then we can interact and help each other more meaningfully and wholesomely, in other words. So I'm coming to the end of this first part now. So what we have learned today is we have individual actions, and when we act together, we have group action. And we influence one another. The individual can change the group can change the individual. But where karma is concerned, it is a very personal, individual process going on in the mind. But the mind is so powerful, it can affect others also. So we'll stop here at the moment, and next week we'll finish off with the last part, where we examine these ideas a little deeper, and then we'll go from there. Anyone has any questions for us?
Yeah, what is about the relation in the Tibetans to protest against the Chinese communists? I don't think it's correct because it's against the first precept. Do not harm or kill yourself or your others.
Yeah.
But they're still practicing it until now, which give very bad image to the Buddhists.
Yeah, in fact, this self-immolation is burning themselves.
Burning it.
This is also done in Vietnam in the 60s, you know. One reason the monks burn themselves in Vietnam is because they were what they call the Catholic government, so it was very powerful, and they were suppressing the Buddhist majority. So the Buddhist monks there, they did not know what to do. Because the last thing was Vesak Day, they could not even raise their Buddhist flag, you know, in Vietnam. So in the end, the Buddhists being non-violent, they had to express themselves. So these monks decided to burn themselves to protest. But Vietnam is a very sad case because the wife of the president there, Mon Dinh Diem at that time, she was sometimes called a dragon lady because she's quite a cruel person. So she laughed. She said, "Oh, let these Buddhist monks roast themselves. They want to become barbecue, become satay." You know? So, but then over 30 monks burned themselves. Of course, if you look at the situation, you say, "Wow, this is really bad." You know, people killing themselves, which is definitely wrong. It's against the Vinaya. But here, if we look at the situation as it is, we might say in Vietnam at that time, the people were desperate. So instead of killing the Catholics, they would rather destroy themselves. And what is the most precious thing to us, our lives? So it's not a good thing, definitely. But it definitely brought the attention of the world to it. So you have two bad things, you know. Anyway, something good came out there, you know, in the end, the country became free and so on. I definitely would not agree with such things or think this is right, but we're talking about these historical developments. Now Tibet, you got to examine it again on its own, what really happened in Tibet. Who are burning themselves, why are they burning themselves, what ideas do they have in their mind. In Vietnam, the rationale or excuse was that they say in the Lotus Sutra, there is this bodhisattva who drank fragrant oil for many world cycles, okay, and then finally burned himself as an offering to the Buddha. Now, here we have to be careful. You see, these are not stories that not like everything you and I do. These are stories. People don't live for kalpas, you know. And bodhisattvas are mythical figures. They are symbolic figures in Buddhist stories to symbolize certain qualities and so on. So here the story means this. This person, this bodhisattva, drinks fragrant oil and so on. You can interpret this as keeping the precepts, the fragrance of the precepts, as mentioned in Dhammapada. And then burns himself. Now there's a play on word here, because the word to burn oneself, dhyayati, actually also means to meditate. When you meditate, you burn away your defilements. So what is symbolic? In Mahayana, you've got a lot of symbolic stories. They take it literally because of political problems, you know. Now, I'm not so clear about the Tibetan rationale for burning himself. Definitely, the idea is to create some kind of public attention, see? But apparently, the burning seems to have stopped now. You don't see so much of it. And still, you know, China is in firm control of the whole country. So yes, I would say it's not something we would encourage, because life is precious. Yeah, so in that sense, it's not right. So it's not an easy situation, of course, to really talk about, but that is our approach. Any other question?
Second thing is the clash between the Muslim and the Buddhist in Myanmar. So they say there's the trigger usually is the Muslim. They rape and kill the Buddhist Rakhine. But then some people are very angry and fight back and retaliate. But then I read in the news that there's a certain group of small monk and radical, super radical Buddhists with 969 logo. They want to remove all the potential attack by the Muslims, what happened in the Bhatia Khilji time. So they want to purify the Myanmar to become a pure Buddhist country. So it gives a very bad image to the Buddhists in the world stage, especially because the journalists like to report the bad news. Bad news is good news for the journalists. So every day I read, how come they claim Buddhists, if they kill people, they're already against the first precept. So they can't be a Buddhist once they kill other for the sake of the Buddhism religion.
So here again we see group karma, we see Buddhism as in society. Here a lot of things can be said about it, but I'm going to limit myself to the spiritual aspects. If the monks do not meditate or do not meditate enough, they only caught up with studies, and next thing will be politics. And it's a wrong thing. That's not the livelihood of a monk. So definitely that is something wrong. And if a monk were to incite violence, my goodness, that's just the opposite of being a monk. And that's definitely bad karma. So, but you see this in many countries, even in Korea, the monks became warriors and so on, and then Buddhism is lost completely, significantly in Korea, for example. So this is where there's only one way that Buddhism can be truly strong in any community. The monks have to practice their meditation, keep their Vinaya rules, teach the suttas. That's the only way that Dharma can really be strong. The lay people can get involved in politics. Second point, when religions see themselves purely as religion and do not have a bigger idea of common humanity, they have problems also. So, but one thing today you can see in the world, there is more information about religions. So the more educated people, the more open-minded people, they begin to wonder. They say, is the religion causing more trouble today than otherwise? What if there were no religion? There'd probably be more peace. This is one argument, you know. In a sense, they are right. In a sense, only in a sense, okay? Because there's also something like, we say, the good aspects of religion. Okay, there's a person, this famous writer, atheist called Sam Harris. You know? He wrote an article of which I wrote a reflection recently. He says if you look at Buddhism, obviously it's influenced deeply by Buddhism. He says that whatever Buddhism teaches, which is universal, for example, respect for life, mental peace, and so on, all these are universal in appeal, of universal value. Now, if something is of universal value, we cannot say it is Buddhist or give it any label. You know, it doesn't belong to any religion. Now, if that's the case, then we don't have to call it Buddhist. But that is a very interesting idea. What he's saying is then a Buddhist can be more open to others. Anyone can be a Buddhist. You don't have to to give up your religion, so to speak. You can still practice Buddhism. It's a very interesting idea. So what he's saying here that it's not that you don't need Buddhism, it's because the Buddha teaches in this way that we as Buddhists can talk in this way. That Buddhism teaches universal values. That's what makes Buddhism special. We're able to teach something so universal that anyone, no matter what religion you are, can practice it. Isn't that wonderful? In other words, we're talking about universal values. But you can only talk in this way as a Buddhist. It is only the Buddha who introduced this kind of idea because he himself realized it through his awakening. So it points to this higher level of understanding of the Dharma. Yes, you may belong to any religion. You can call yourself any name you like, but then you limit yourself to this way of looking. But if you want to really bring peace into this world, you've got to get out of that label. It's just like you go shopping, you buy all this soup and whatever thing they got brands, you know. But ultimately you bring it home, you've got to use this thing. You've got to pour the soup out of the can. You don't care what label it is. You've got to eat it, drink it, and then it gives you health. Same thing with the Dharma. And I think this is a beautiful idea, where we get out of the group labels, we get out of all these parochial ideas, but we see universality, truth in the nameless Dharma, if you like. But it's the Buddha who makes us realize that. And I think that is where Buddhism can be very relevant in bringing peace in a religious situation where our troubles are caused by religion. Okay? Alright, so we'll end here for today. We normally do a short reflection and to close with just kind of quiet moment. So just today we're gathered together here on this very special, wonderful day to reflect on the nature of group karma. Now, although we talk group karma, ultimately we are each responsible for our actions. But when we work together with common responsibility, common desire for peace, common desire for wisdom, then we become more effective. This is one very good understanding of good karma. In fact, we will see in our next lesson, for example, the monks getting together, acting as a group of teachers, performing the Vinaya ceremonies to ordain others. These are all very wonderful good karma to strengthen the Dharma, to spread the Dharma. Reflecting in this way, we create good karma, good mental karma. By the power of such karma, may our minds be at peace. May in this life itself we attain spiritual liberation, namely stream winning. In this moment of peace, let us send our thoughts of loving kindness to all our loved ones, our teachers, and all those in need of the Dharma. May they all be well, may they be happy, may the Dharma touch their lives. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.